Caucus. My name is Steve Haleko. I'm the political director of the organization. And before we get to the candidates, I'm going to talk about some links we're going to send you and some upcoming events. Now, the links are not going to be in the chat. What we have found through numerous Zoom meetings like this, sadly we have to be by Zoom, is that it's far better to send all of the links in an email, which will go out sometime tomorrow, so that you can look at it at your convenience and you won't have to be like looking at the chat, looking at the link, and trying to look at the forum at the same time. The first link we're going to send you is a link to join the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. Membership is free, and if you join when you get to the email tomorrow with the link in it, you'll be eligible to vote in our endorsement vote on this election. We are going to endorse in the Cleveland Heights City Council and Cleveland Heights University Heights School Board elections, but that won't be until sometime in August. We always do our endorsements after the filing deadline, and you probably know that the mayor's race has a primary, so the filing deadline was today, and the city council and the school board races don't have a primary, so their filing deadlines are in August. The second link you'll get tomorrow is to donate to the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. And those of you that have been with us for a while, and I see many familiar faces, know that we are all volunteer funded, all volunteer staffed, and to keep our office open and to have this Zoom link and all the materials we need small contributions by our membership. And anything you can donate would be greatly appreciated. The third link is going to be to the YouTube video of this event. And we're actually going to send an email out to folks who registered and maybe at the last second couldn't make it as well. But the YouTube recording of this event, I don't know if you want to look at it again since you're here tonight watching it, but if you want to, that's fine. But please feel free to share it. We would hope everybody would be interested in what the candidates have to say tonight. And then there will be two links to upcoming CCPC events. July 20th, our July membership meeting. The two topics of that meeting will be an update from the Nina Turner campaign. We endorsed Nina a couple months ago. As we go into the last few weeks before the August 3rd primary for the 11th Congressional District special election. But we're also going to have a segment where we're going to ask for a lot of audience participation called "What Would a More Progressive Cuyahoga County Democratic Party Look Like?" And that is kind of piggybacking off our May membership meeting when we talked about our precinct committee project and what we would like to do to make the party more progressive. If that interests you, please contact me. Send me an email back after you get the email tomorrow, and I'll be glad to explain in some more detail. And then the final link we're going to send out tomorrow is to our July 26th event, which is the City of Cleveland Mayoral Candidates Forum. We will be endorsing in that race as well as a number of Cleveland City Council races for those of you that are interested in City of Cleveland politics. Now, let me briefly explain the format of tonight's event. We originally invited all four candidates that have filed, and I don't know if the candidates have their petitions in or not yet, but Barbara Danforth said that she couldn't make it and she was going to send a surrogate, but we don't see the surrogate in the Zoom. So it looks like we're going to have three candidates tonight. Wait a minute, I see somebody waving. Obi, are you here for Barbara? Obi Shelton? Deb, unmute Obi, please.
Yes, that's me. I am Barbara's husband and her designated spokesperson tonight.
Okay, I wish she would have told us because she gave us another name, so we didn't know to look for you. I'm sorry, about that. Okay, so it looks like we have 3 of the candidates and a representative of the 4th candidate. So what we'll do is we'll have a 2-minute opening statement by each candidate. Then we will have 8 questions that you guys submitted. And I want to say, from the start, we've done numerous candidates forums, around the county, and the questions you guys submitted are the best. So that's going to make for a good forum. And each of the candidates will have 90 seconds to answer each of the questions. And then we will close with a 2-minute closing statement. And one of the things, when we do these candidates forums live, we have a random drawing for the opening statement, but by Zoom, we can't really do that. So what we're going to do is go alphabetical. And then throughout the questions, we will rotate the order so that the candidate, who goes last, and if you go last, you kind of have the advantage of thinking of the answer more and seeing what the other candidates say. But with the rotating order, you'll have, pretty much sometimes last, sometimes first, sometimes second, sometimes third. And then at the end of the forum, I'll explain, how our endorsement process will work. So before we introduce the candidates, I want to introduce our co-host tonight and our tech person, Deb Klein.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for coming tonight. Just really quickly again, opening statements will be 2 minutes. I will give you a 10-second warning, and then at the end of the time, you will just be muted. So you want to make sure that you wrap up, and then we have the 90 seconds for the answers to the questions. The chat has been turned off and all participants are muted. So to keep things running smoothly. Thank you all for attending, and I hope you enjoy it and you learn a lot tonight.
All right, let's first introduce the candidates. I think you saw Obi waving. He is going to be speaking for Barbara Danforth. Want to also introduce Cleveland Heights City Councilwoman Melody Joy Hart. And activist Josie Moore. And Cleveland Heights City Council President Khalil Sarah. And to get started with the opening statement, since we put Barbara's last name first, Obi, you can speak for Barbara.
So, well, good evening, everybody. And I see a lot of faces that I have known over the years, and it's good to see you. Barbara wanted to be here, but she had made a commitment a while back. And one of her values is to keep her commitments. So it's important for her to keep that one tonight. But she wanted to make sure that she connected with you. And so she asked me, because I know her better than anybody. Normally, this is when she goes over her credentials. I think you may have them, but just to underline some things, that she is a lawyer. She began as a social worker, and then she managed social workers for the Department of Children and Family Services in Cuyahoga County. She was the CEO of the YWCA, which works to empower women and eliminate racism. She ran that and turned around that organization, ran it for 15 years. Barbara Danforth has done things that are consistent with, I know, a lot of the people who are watching tonight, with the why they served women who were homeless and were victims of domestic violence. And so she did things on a broad scale as well as on an individual scale, where she got like 16 women who were of all different ethnicities. And so she started having them meet every month, and they were going to do it for 5 months. They ended up doing it for 10 years. These were Latinx, Asian, white, and Black, and they met to have a deeper understanding of each other. So it's what she has done in leading organizations that brings to Cleveland Heights that capacity as its first mayor as we make this very critical transition.
Thank you, Obi. Next up, Melody Joy Hart.
Melody, you need to unmute. Okay, you're good.
Okay, good evening. I decided to run for mayor because I feel the first mayor must have the skills to put in place the policies, the processes, the procedures, and the guardrails for future mayors. I spoke with several mayors in the area, as well as one from a city that had gone through the change from city manager to mayor, in order to determine the key aspects that are important for a mayor. One of them is a long history of civic involvement, which provides knowledge of the area and of its issues. A second is a knowledge of the city government and operations. The third is managerial experience, and the fourth is financial knowledge. First, I've been civically involved with GCC over 10 years, and with GCC Cleveland Heights Housing Committee for about 6 years, walking the neighborhoods. We also sponsored Ansley DeMoose, a Haitian immigrant, and got him released from detention and into our care. We've been involved in various democratic organizations, as well as Heights Friends of Immigrants, Americans Making Immigrants Safe, and a number of social justice causes. Second, I've been on city council for 1.5 years and went to all council and committee of the whole meetings in person for over 4 years prior to that. I know the city staff. I've done a ride along with our police and have visited our facilities to see our operations. Third, I have over 30 years of experience in business as a finance executive, a treasurer. I've led departments, I've developed budgets, I've financed companies and developed policies. And fourth, I have an MBA, I am a CPA, and I am chair of the council's finance committee. I am the only candidate uniquely qualified because I have all of these under my belt. Additionally, leadership style is important as well. In my career, I've had departments to run, but also had to work with other departments and outside entities like banks and rating agencies. Because I would have no control over these entities,
10 seconds.
I had to collaborate with them and get goals accomplished. I've done this successfully. A vote for me is a vote for success of the transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Next up, Josie Moore.
Good evening, everyone. I am Josie Moore. I am running for mayor on a value platform of equity, sustainability, and community. I believe that we are living in a moment of reckoning. And to me, this means that we need to change how we do things. To tackle inequality, we need equitable decision-making processes to bring in disenfranchised communities and give them a greater say in what we do with our common resources. To build sustainability and to truly enact sustainability, we need to challenge decades and overturn dominant thinking about how we grow economically. But thankfully, we have what we need right here in Cleveland Heights to lead change from the ground up. The people of Cleveland Heights are engaged and creative and informed and caring. And we are ready to make our city a model of what a progressive community can be. But to do this, our local government must enact our values. We need leadership that is inclusive and responsive and collaborative. And we must embrace forward-thinking ideas and rather than cling to established practices that don't reflect who we are and what we believe in. So I am a small business owner working in communications, and my political experience is in community building, outreach, and organizational management. And I am running because we need people-centered leadership, because we need new ways of thinking, because we can't change what we do until we change how we do it. I am Josie Moore.
Thank you, Josie. Next up, Khalil Sarin.
Thank you, Steve. Deb. Being a progressive means pushing for progress, for people who need it the most, and toward a more inclusive, justice-oriented set of values for our community. The first elected mayor of Cleveland Heights will have the opportunity to deliver the kind of substantive progress that Heights residents demanded by passing the Strong Mayor Charter Amendment. We need to choose the person who can and will make the most of this opportunity. As a result, the only question that really matters in this election is, what have you done? Because what we've done is who we are. If you want to know who, as mayor, will best help Cleveland Heights make progress, ask us about the progress we've already helped Cleveland Heights make. I've been working for substantive progress in Cleveland Heights as a council member for the last 6 years. Before joining council, I served on the Citizens Advisory Committee for 2 years. I was the first Black man to serve as vice mayor, and I'm the current vice president of city council. Professionally, I've worked in county government for more than a decade, and I'm currently the chief advisor to Cuyahoga County Council on economic, community, and workforce development. I'm uniquely qualified to guide Cleveland Heights through this transition because I have already helped a 21st century government get created from the ground up. I'm honored to have been endorsed in this race by Our Revolution Ohio, because using government as a tool for making progress is my passion and my life's work. When I see inequity, I don't wait to act. Instead, I respond proactively by creating programs and policies that address the underlying issues. During this forum, I hope to talk with you more about what I've done
Seconds.
and how I would like to put my experience to work to make progress for all of Cleveland Heights as mayor. Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to your questions.
Okay, our first question deals with the environment. Do you have plans to implement sustainability principles? Please provide specific examples of those principles. Our order will be Khalil, Obi, Melody Joy Hart, Josie, and we will start with Khalil.
Thank you, Deb. Yes, actually, I do have plans to implement sustainability principles. I think that it is absolutely crucial, and it is the issue of our generation, of our time, to deal with the effects of climate change. And it is incumbent on every level of government, including city government, to take this seriously and address it aggressively. To that end, I plan to aggressively reforest as much as we possibly can, to deal with not only the issues of carbon emissions, but also issues of stormwater that we are certainly experiencing in this region. Furthermore, I think that we need to be a little bit more aggressive and creative when it comes to energy generation. The cities in Ohio have the power to create municipal utilities. And using that tool, we have the opportunity to allow for virtual net metering that would assist not only the municipal facilities that we already have solar panels and other renewable things in place on, but also our residents, and to help our residents take advantage of virtual net metering in an attempt to increase the use of renewable energy in our community and reduce costs for energy use as well. Beyond that, I think that we need to electrify our fleet in order to take advantage of that renewable energy generation that we will be pursuing locally. There are a wide variety of sustainable methods.
And our next speaker is Obi Shelton.
Thank you. Barbara is certainly committed to environmental sustainability, and she has a specific plan of, once elected mayor, of convening a voluntary group of residents who have environmental expertise and understanding, probably some of the people who are even watching tonight. And somebody would sit on every residential and commercial development project that goes on so that that voice is heard. She understands that there has to be a balance as Cleveland Heights tries to develop economically, that with all of our projects, whether it's homes or like the top of the hill, that you have the environmental voice in there so that those adjustments can be made to make the right balance. In addition to that, she would like to see how feasible it would be to have solar panels built on the new houses, like in the infill projects. And we have a rain garden in our backyard. She just bought a hybrid car. So Barbara is committed on a city level and also on a personal level to sustainability.
Thank you. Next up is Melody.
I'm committed to sustainability, and to make one comment about our cities, we are ahead of many other cities in that we have solar panels installed on 3 of our buildings, and we have our CRA, our tax credit abatement has increased abatement if you have LEED certified energy efficiency. So we do encourage that as well. We are trying to maintain or improve our sewers, which are aged. It's important we maintain our tree canopy. And I would like to have the aim of having an appropriate tree canopy amount from the Sierra Club, which we would strive to reach in a certain number of years. We'd find a goal and then we'd plant yearly to get to that tree canopy. In regard to environmental justice, the salt dome, the dump by it, and the old dairy need to be moved. It's not correct to have these near a residential area, and certainly understand our residents on the north side feeling like they're getting dumped by having eyesores in their neighborhood. I also think that we should cooperate with other cities in order to maintain a utility that is powered by solar power. And that would be a good event to have in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Josie?
Thank you very much. I am deeply committed to not just sustainability, but also regeneration, and also to develop policies and ways to adapt to the climate impacts that are coming. Unfortunately, we should have been responding to this 4 decades ago, but here we are. And so we do need to understand that climate impacts are coming our way, and each locality will need to adapt in a way that's right for them. One thing that I absolutely want to do is to create a sustainability committee led by an in-house full-time sustainability director. And that sustainability director will not only be the point person for the sustainability committee, and that is so that we can have people who know a lot more about this than our elected officials, advising our officials on what to do to become sustainable, to be regenerative, and to adapt. And then we need our sustainability director to then also to be working with other heads of departments, to be advising them of what they can be doing to be put in place to develop more sustainable practices in everything they're doing, from the building department to the parks and recreation. What can they be doing to increase sustainability and regeneration? Thank you very much.
Okay, the next 3 questions deal with the topic of housing. And we had a lot of good questions submitted on this topic. The first of these questions is, do you plan on reorganizing and strengthening the housing department, specifically so that the work will no longer be done by outside contractors? If so, what is that plan? And the order for this question is Josie, Khalil, Obi speaking for Barbara, and Melody. So Josie, you're up.
Thank you very much. We absolutely need to rebuild our housing department. One of the things I want to start with is merging our housing department and our building department, and that will reduce people having to go back and forth. But we must bring all of our inspectors back in-house. This is a slow process. It's not something that can be done all at once with a mass hiring. We want to make sure that we are hiring the right people. Each one of our housing inspectors need to be certified by the State Board of Building Standards, and they must maintain their certification through continuing education. And that way, all of our inspection needs can be done in-house. And that also ensures that we have buy-in, that our department will have a mission to not only maintain our housing, but also do so in a people-centric way that serves our people and makes sure that they are getting the help they need to maintain their housing. And so when we bring it all in-house, we will have buy-in, and we will have people dedicated to serving our community's needs.
Thank you, Josie. Khalil.
Thank you. I believe that the outsourcing of our building function and the outsourcing of the inspection work that we can no longer make happen in-house it's necessary that it's a temporary stopgap measure. An aggressive hiring, training, and professional development program is required to bring that department back into a fully functioning status. Beyond that, though, our housing inspections need to be augmented by support for residents who are having difficulty for a variety of reasons in maintaining the housing that we have in this city. When we're talking about people who are extracting value from our city, landlords who are taking resources away from our city, those landlords need to be targeted aggressively for enforcement of our housing code. But when we're talking about residents, people who've lived in this city for a long time and are having difficulty keeping up with the maintenance needs that a 100-year-old home needs, we need to augment our inspectional services with resources for homeowners, either grants, technical assistance, low-cost loans, in order to maintain our housing stock.
And second,
This is a vital component in increasing the value that we provide to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalil. Next up, Obi speaking for Barbara.
Thank you. Barbara went to get all of her signatures herself, with the exception of maybe 40, and she walked up on maybe 2,000 steps, and I walked up with her on maybe 90% of them, and we saw how a lot of houses look good from when you're going 35 miles an hour by them, but when you start walking up on the steps, you see how they have not aged so well. And when we knocked on the doors, we found a lot of seniors who really wanted to keep their homes up, but they weren't able to keep them up because they had lost the physical ability and the financial ability to do it. So Barbara had talked with them about what is it possible that the city could support you with loan, that we could give you a no interest loan that you could pay back when you sell the house? Is it possible that the city could give you a support to make improvements on your house, and that you could either pay it back if you had the ability, or pay it off again when you sell it? She, as the other candidates, is committed to looking at the likelihood of returning housing inspectors back under the city's auspices. Once you get in the office and you start looking at the budget,
and second,
those are hard. Sometimes those things become complicated, but she certainly wants to bring back those in-house inspectors.
Thank you, Obi. Melody.
Housing is a key part of our city. It's our chief asset, and it is the primary asset of most homeowners. It's a very important function that we have, and having it manned by a couple of safe-built people on point of sale and having safe-built handle our building department is not sufficient. One thing we can do is we can work on the building department, which is state law, in order to work to combine with perhaps another city or two and have a combined building department, so we can split the cost, because it is hard to hire these people. So we really need to hold our resources together. In terms of the housing department for compliance, we need a fully staffed department. We do not have that. That needs to be a priority, and getting rid of the safe-built point of sale individuals. So having also a lawyer on staff that is devoted to housing is key. I want to ensure that all those positions are filled. I also want a civil enforcement option so that residents who are in violation don't get a criminal record. and so that LLCs cannot avoid criminal violations. I've already put in place 3 legislations on that front for foreclosures, for vacant houses, and for out of county. I think the computerization of the department is key. I think this is the way we actually make.
Thank you, Melody. And it's interesting that you brought up point of sale, because we have another question on housing, and that question is, what is your position on point of sale housing inspections? And our order this time is Melody Joy Hart, Josie Moore, Khalil Sarin, and Obi Shelton for Barbara Danforth. And Melody, you are up.
Okay, point of sale was put in place originally as an anti-discrimination law so that all neighborhoods would remain solid. This is particularly important in low and middle income neighborhoods where there's a higher percentage of rentals. I would not eliminate it, as it makes the seller of a property get the house up to code when it is sold. And that's particularly important since our houses are old and some are 100 years old, and investors are buying up properties not wanting to put more money in them. We have to make sure that that doesn't happen, that the point of sale happens and that it's brought up to code. We can't allow investor-owned properties who are absentee landlords to ruin the rest of the neighborhoods and run them down. So point of sale, I think that's gold and we have to keep it. I even talked with Sally Martin at one point of South Euclid, and she said she would never give it up if you have it. And I agree with her completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Next up is Josie.
Hi, thank you. As a homeowner of a over 100-year-old house, I am grateful for the point of sale, knowing that when we bought our house, it was brought up to code. That doesn't mean that things didn't happen. They certainly did. It's an old house, but it does minimize the number of surprises that new homeowners encounter when coming into a home. And so I think it's especially crucial with our old housing stock that each time a house changes hands, that we go in to make sure that it's up to code and that the new buyers are not going to be surprised with thousands of dollars of repairs when they have probably just put in a huge chunk of their savings to get into the house. So point of sales are a great way to protect homeowners and to make sure that and to have periodic check-ins with our homes.
Thank you. Khalil, you're next.
I have a feeling that I will echo the need to maintain some system of point of sale inspection. Point of sale inspections provide a valuable service to buyers of homes in our city. They provide a warning to people. Buyer beware is not how we want to operate in Cleveland Heights. Consumer protection is a very important piece of a civilized society. But point of sale only works when the point of sale inspections are prompt, when they're consistent, and when they're reliable. And as it stands, our service has not fulfilled those 3 characteristics. So we need to ramp up how we do point of sale. We need to ensure that we are testing for reliability on our point of sale inspections to make sure that one inspector doesn't provide a different inspection than another inspector does on the same property. And furthermore, when we do these point of sale inspections, we need to make sure that we are also pairing that point of sale with a list of resources that a homeowner, home seller, a home buyer can take a look at and make use of to bring that house up to code. We can't simply make this a punitive thing. It's a warning, but we also need to provide a prescription for fixing what ails the house. Thank you.
Thank you. And Obi.
One of the main things that Cleveland Heights is known for is its housing, great housing stock. And Barbara Danforth and I have one of those great homes here in the Forest Hill area. And she has talked to, I don't know if there are any realtors on the line, she has talked to realtors who feel that point of sale needs to be eliminated. And she's talked to those who feel that it needs to be sustained. And she is one of those who feels that it needs to be sustained because it gives the city leverage and control when that transaction changes so that Cleveland Heights can continue to be the city that is known for its great homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next housing question is, and I think some of you touched on this in previous answers, but do you have any ideas on building affordable senior housing? And the order for this question is Obi speaking for Barbara, Melody, Josie, and Khalil. So Obi, you're up again.
Thank you. As Barbara and I have walked the city, she has recognized the need, as we have so many vacant lots, the opportunity to build single story homes where everything is on one level, so that a senior or even a new home buyer would be interested in it. Of course, the challenge is to make it affordable. There are a number of housing projects, infill home opportunities that are around the city. And while Cleveland Heights could attract not just younger homeowners, she's especially looking at those possibilities for seniors that would be on one floor.
And next up is, I think we're done on that. Or I'm sorry, Steve, you started, didn't you?
Right, Melody's next up.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Melody, you're not unmuted.
I've noticed the lack of first floor housing in that we were actually trying to move and go into a first floor housing and could not find it. So there is a real need for that here. And currently the city is putting in infill housing, a lot of which is going to be first floor in Noble, Caledonia, and DeSoto. They're going to be putting these in. So that's good. Now, whether it's affordable or not, because they said it's going to be like between 200 and 300,000, that may not be affordable. So that would mean affordable housing usually needs some government subsidies in order to accomplish that. And that may be something we have to look at. All in all, that we do have a dearth of it. I think Severance, if we could redevelop it, that would be a great place to have senior housing. You already have Metro Health expansion. You have some doctor's offices. There could be retail and also first floor senior housing there. That would be a good repositioning of that facility if we could find the way to get that done, which would be my goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Josie.
Okay, thank you. As Melody mentioned, some of the infill housing up north is being slated to be first floor housing. We also have a lot of properties that the city owns that could be renovated for first floor living. I know my aunt and uncle are working on that right now, and so that is another option. I would also like to note that when we are working with developers to develop sites, I know some seniors will want a little piece of land, they'll want a garden, they'll want a house. Some seniors will want townhomes or apartments, but they'll want to own them. They don't want to pay rent. They're going to be on a limited income. So when we're working with developers, we need to make clear that we want townhomes that they can purchase that are owner occupied. And so in addition to building new homes, and we need to make sure that we make them affordable, we can work with homes that need renovations. Future Heights can work with us, HRRC, to renovate homes for first floor living. And when we're working with developers, we can make sure that they offer owner occupied apartments and townhomes.
Thank you, Josie. Khalil.
Thank you. And of course, this is going to be a need that only increases in the coming years. There are two pieces of this question. One is senior living or living for people with mobility issues, because some of those issues are the same. The other piece of this question is affordability, and I want to address the affordability piece. I think that the city has an opportunity to create or support the creation of a community land trust. Given the amount of land that this city owns, foreclosed properties that have been demolished, vacant lots, we can use those properties in a community land trust to maintain affordability long-term. So when we build houses for seniors, for people with mobility issues, we can control how affordable those houses are. That's something that we need to seriously consider, and it's something that I'll consider as mayor. Secondly, I think that there are programs to maintain the affordability of the housing that we have now. There are first floor house living in Cleveland Heights as we speak. And one thing that we could do to ensure the maintained affordability is to protect seniors from the housing market shocks that can inflate someone's property values and inflate their tax bill by instituting a program, longevity program, that would allow for a tax abatement for a senior that's living in their
10
house,
seconds.
not based on the improvements to the house, but based on environmental changes out of their control. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to pivot and talk about the school system. What do you think a solid working relationship between the city and the schools should include? And what is your plan to strengthen that partnership? Our order will be Khalil, Obi, Melody Joy Hart, and Josie.
Thank you. So professionally, I work on this at the county level. I have implemented, designed and implemented scholarship programs with a mentorship piece. And Cleveland Heights, University Heights students are already benefiting from that and have for years. Additionally, we have a Closing the Achievement Gap program in the high school right now that I worked on and got in that school. Furthermore, I think that the schools and the students in those schools can be supported by the city in a more direct way, providing outlets for their creative energy, outlets for their intellectual energy outside of the school district to showcase their abilities, their capabilities, their accomplishments in a non-school setting so that the wider community can see it more readily. But beyond that, I think that communication is key. I restarted the joint meetings that the school board, the library board, University Heights and Cleveland Heights have. We're going to be having our regularly scheduled joint board meetings, and this is something that needs to continue in a more robust way. There are things that we can take from Shaker Heights doing their facilities model where they share facilities and they coordinate facilities with their school district and their library board. And this is something that we can implement here in Cleveland Heights. There's a lot of opportunity for us to coordinate, and I plan to take advantage of it all.
Thank you. Obi.
Thank you, Barbara. Danforth had a conversation with the school superintendent about a month ago, and the superintendent said, Barbara said, what can the new mayor do best for the schools? And she said to have a stronger relationship. So what Barbara sees is the city presenting opportunities for students to work as interns, learning skills, learning painting skills, maybe helping our seniors who have to fix up, who need to fix their homes, because the students would then be learning the skill and the seniors would be benefiting from it. The students could be learning how to maintain the parks. So therefore you have the kids in the neighborhoods, of course they're supervised, but the neighbors are seeing them in contexts outside of what we hear so much, that they saw some kids fighting on the street outside of the school. And then of course the schools need to market better with the help of the city, what they're doing. We had 2 exchange students 2 years ago, and we found out the wonderful things that the schools offer that a lot of people don't really know about, and we didn't know about until we had 2 students.
Thank you. Next up is Melody.
Thank you. I think that the schools and the city are very intertwined. their fate and our fate are very tied together. The increasing taxes from the deficit voucher funding creates higher taxes for everyone, which drives more people out of the city. And it's important that we link together to fight these things. One, fighting for having funding come from the state and not from the cities. Two, we also need to fight to make sure, if you look at Shaker Heights, everyone thinks they have a great school. And they're pretty similar to us. But we have a great school too. I've been impressed when I've been at the music hop. Those kids will come walking through singing, and they're very, very talented. We have great programs and great art programs too. And I think what we need to do is market that more. That's what Shaker does. They market their school system. And we need to help them in marketing it because it is a great system. And we should highlight the programs that they have, highlight some of the great students and the scholarships they get, because this is a good school district. And we need to make sure that people are aware of that and support the school district in their efforts to
Seconds.
make sure funding is done correctly.
Thank you. Josie.
Thank you very much. The schools are the heart of our community, particularly in a mostly residential community in which our property values are so directly tied to the perception of the quality of our schools. We need to make sure that we are helping drive the narrative of just how good our schools are. And in particular, we need to talk about how the amazing work that our schools do to address our unique student population. We have 83% of our public school students are students of color. So we have a disproportionately minority community. We have a disproportionate amount of students coming from poverty. We have a lot of transient students, and these are transient students who move around a lot. And these are things that are driving down our test scores and giving the perception that we're failing. And so we need to do things to start helping this. We need to address poverty, to try to and stabilize families in poverty, and so that they stay where they are, and so that their kids can go through our schools K through 12. But more than anything, the mayor needs to be an advocate and building coalition to get the Fair School Funding Plan passed so that we get the funding that we need from our.
Thank you.
Okay, the next two questions deal with the topic of public safety. And the first of these is, please comment on the fact that if you are from the BIPOC community, you are statistically 3 times more likely to be stopped by the police in Cleveland Heights than your white counterparts. And the order for this question is Josie, Khalil, Obi speaking for Barbara, and Melody. So Josie, you're up again.
Thank you very much. The study that came out about the police traffic stops was definitely raised a lot of concerns and red flags. It brought more questions than answers. We absolutely need a fuller picture of what exactly is happening. And when we have that fuller picture, we will have a much better idea of how to proceed. In the meantime, we need a progressive mayor who will, because we have as far as police departments go, comparison to Columbus or Cleveland, we have a relatively progressive chief of police who is absolutely open to community conversations and bringing in community voices and reform. So we need a progressive mayor to push that forward and to make sure that the police are getting continual anti-bias training, but also that we are aggressively getting police officers out who engage in any kind of discriminatory practices. That we need to make sure that everyone in Cleveland Heights, when they see a patrol car, they feel protected, not policed.
Thank you, Josie. Next up, Khalil.
Thank you. Well, as a Black man in America, I was not at all surprised by the findings that we were presented with by CSU's Diversity Institute. This is the expected situation here, even in Cleveland Heights. This is something that we have to take a hard look at ourselves about. I've spoken with the chief, I've spoken with captains, and this is something that our police department is receptive to changing. We need to find the ways to change it, but I think that we need to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to, and creative when it comes to how we address that. So decriminalizing a wide variety of offenses and reducing the need and the number of police-resident interactions is a way to keep our police safe, keep our residents safe, and limit the amount of interaction with the criminal justice system that has cascading effects in people's lives. I think that that's the first step. On a parallel track, we do need anti-bias training, implicit bias training, but that training changes minds. It doesn't necessarily change outcomes. So in order to change outcomes, we need to have a rigorous system of accountability, and we need to remember that our residents decide how we're policed.
Thank you, Khalil. Next up, Obi speaking for Barbara.
Thank you. Barbara knows firsthand what that feels like. One day she was stopped by an officer on Mayfield and she wondered why was she stopped? And after he stopped her, he told her that she was in a rental car. And often, sometimes those are people who, there's something wrong if you're in a rental car. Well, she wondered why that was the case. When the study came out, she was wondering, number one, does this have to do with a few number of officers? Can you identify which officers were doing the most stopping, or is it something that is geographic? Is it in one area? And those are the questions that weren't asked in that. Those are the questions that weren't asked in that survey. So in terms of police, yes, the sensitivity training, understanding their biases, and but then also understanding that we do depend on our police to help control the crime that is a creeping problem in the community.
Thank you, Obi. Next up, Melody.
I was surprised myself by the results of that study, and I ended up meeting with the police staff with 4 officers. 2 were white and 2 were Black. And I asked them, what did they feel about the results of those? And they said, well, one, we typically put officers in the places where there's the most crime, which is in the north side of the city. That area happens to be more African-American. Plus, we have a lot of people traveling through the city, so they may be people from other cities. But that being said, one of the things we don't have is the data. We have data that shows that, but it doesn't show why people were stopped. And lowering the reason for stops is good. Like, for instance, do we need a traffic stop for every equipment violation? If it's not a danger, why not let it go? It's not important. So decriminalization, as Khalil mentioned, is good. I don't know if you knew this, but if your dog gets loose, the police catch the dog and you have a misdemeanor on your record and have to go to court. Now, why should a dog be a criminal offense? Why should our housing be a criminal? So I think there's things that we need to decriminalize. I think we also need to have the data so we can determine what officers, or is it certain officers that are making stops, or is it other reasons, in order to determine if there's racism involved.
Thank you. Our next question is also dealing with public safety. What is your opinion on the use of ShotSpotter in Cleveland Heights? And our order this time is Melody, Josie, Khalil, and then Obi.
Can you say what ShotSpotter is?
ShotSpotter you can find the location when shots are fired. So, and you'll actually know that it's a shot versus a firecracker.
Okay, so repeat your question now that I know what it is.
What is your opinion on ShotSpotter in Cleveland Heights? And using it?
If people use an app, I mean, people are going to use it.
It's for the police,
Oh, for the police, okay. I think that they could use it. When I talked to one of the captains, he said that they can tell the difference between gunshots and fireworks because they know what to look for when they're listening to it. So whether they would need ShotSpot, I don't know, but if that helps them, certainly I don't see that there's a problem with it.
Okay, next up is Josie.
Hi, thank you. Captain Mecklenburg, or Chief Mecklenburg, I apologize. Chief Mecklenburg has discussed the possibility of ShotSpotter. She has expressed that it could be paid for from, I believe, the state police union. And basically what it is it's something that listens for gunshots, and when they happen, it calls the police immediately. It sends out an automated call to police. Of course, it is placed in high crime areas, which happen to be areas that are also high poverty, and due to centuries of systemic racism, that happens to be areas of where there are a lot of minorities and a lot of Black people. And so what it is something that could potentially call police in a really like agitated or excited way or like an urgent way to an area where there's a history of people being targeted. So it's problematic. Activists in other cities where it has been employed have protested it, have demonstrated that it is not reliable and that it is not effective. If the police department were to get it, then it would need to be used in a very limited way, very thoughtfully, and with full understanding of its limitations.
Thank you. Next up is Khalil.
Thank you. And yeah, so ShotSpotter as a tool is ostensibly neutral and doesn't discriminate. But we live in a society where discrimination is internal. It is within our culture and within us. And these biases exist. And so when the police are called and there is the expectation that there are firearms in use, it can result in some dangerous situations for people who may have nothing to do with gunshots, but are in an area where gunshots were reported. And depending on how the responding officers view those people in that moment, in a heightened sense of excitement and adrenaline, this could result in disastrous consequences. Just like any other tool, whether it's facial recognition or cameras or license plate scanners, we need to deal with the underlying problems first. And frankly, I think that we are focusing on the wrong system. We need to stop pulling people out of the river, and we need to find out why they're falling into the river in the first place. So focusing on violence interruption, mediation services, let's spend our resources there so that we can stop it from happening in the first place.
Thank you. And Obi.
Any tool that law enforcement uses, whether it's a stun gun or whether it's a 9mm or if it's a ShotSpotter, is a tool that has to be used with wisdom and with discretion. And so to the question of whether a ShotSpotter is a usable tool, it is a usable tool. often police get calls of shots fired. That's someone saying that they think shots are fired. If they have another tool that helps them determine whether that was really shots or whether it was just firecrackers going off, helps them to determine and prioritize whether that's a call that they should treat as really shots being fired. But again, it has to do with dealing with the police officers who are going to use these tools to execute law enforcement.
Thank you.
Our final question this evening deals with administration, and it is, what do you think the relationship between the mayor and city administrator should be? And the order for this question is Obi speaking for Barbara, Melody, Josie, and then Khalil. So Obi, you are up again.
I've heard Barbara Danforth, as she has been talking with a lot of city leaders and a lot of city leaders from neighboring towns, as she's in her office and I'm in the kitchen. And I remember overhearing her talking with the city manager, and she feels that the city manager, who has been there, I believe, for 14 years, needs to stay on initially, because you need to know someone who knows how the city works as we're moving in this transition phase. Eventually, she will seek out a very qualified city manager who can know the nuts and bolts and execute her vision, not run the city. But that is going to be a culture change to get used to a mayor setting the agenda. And culture change is something that Barbara has done throughout her career and has been very successful in terms of her changing culture.
Thank you, Obi. Melody, next up.
I've been talking to University Heights, South Euclid, and Mayfield Heights on these issues, and it varies how they operate with the city administrator, but how I would envision it operating. Susanna has been in the city a long time. She has a lot of history, and she's a very caring person about the city. So one, she's going to be key in the transition and helping to understand all the aspects that we need to aspects. In fact, she's putting together a manual for us for whoever takes the place as a mayor. And I think that in a long-term position like that, you would, whether it's Susanna or someone else, you're going to work very closely with the city administrator as a mayor. The mayor is going to set the strategy. The city administrator is going to handle much of the day-to-day aspects of it. But the buck stops at the mayor, essentially. So, when there are problems, the mayor will be called in. But they have to work extremely closely on implementation of strategy so that they implement smoothly. That is how I would envision them working together. And I've done this kind of thing in corporate life. So this is similar. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Josie?
Thank you very much. The mayor and the city administrator, they need to have a really strong partnership, and they need to be aligned in their vision for our city. So, I know that when as mayor, I look for a city administrator, I definitely want someone who has a master's in preferably public administration. And I want someone who is ICMA certified, but I also want someone who's a really strong communicator and works really well with others, because we need a culture change at City Hall, and we need to break down silos between departments, and we need to really increase communication throughout City Hall. And our city administrator needs to be someone who models that, as does the mayor. We need someone with just really great people skills who really has a commitment to serving the people. We also need a city administrator who is open to fresh ideas and different ways of looking at things and taking on policies in a way that can bring us forward into a more progressive direction. And so we definitely want someone who is not entrenched in established administrative practices, but is open to trying different ways of administering city
10
functions.
seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josie. And Khalil.
Thank you. The charter makes it very clear what the role of the city administrator is, and that is to be a professional manager implementing the policies that the council and the mayor decide. At the direction of the mayor, the city administrator is intended to manage the people who work in the administration. I think that it's important to focus on the fact that the city administrator will manage. That is a managerial role. The vision comes from the mayor. A progressive vision from my mayorship will be translated both with my expertise and with the city administrator's expertise into tangible, actionable programming. I think that it's important that a mayor has the technical skills to double check to make sure that the administrative staff are achieving the goals that the mayor sets. I think that the city administrator would be well served by a set of skills in change management, in analytics, in government process improvement. And I think that those skills would augment my own and ensure that the government administration next year is operating efficiently and effectively and making sure that our
10
government services, our basic government municipal services are achieved well.
Okay, now we're going to go into our closing statements. Each of you will now have 2 minutes to wrap it all up and give us your closing statement. The order will be Khalil, Obi, Melody, and Josie. Khalil?
Thank you very much. This year, in choosing our first elected mayor, we have to decide what we want from our new form of government and what direction it will take. I'm asking for your support because I believe that making progress for people who need it matters. Cleveland Heights is a wonderful place to live. We need to work hard against some serious challenges to keep it that way and make it even better. I believe Cleveland Heights must make equity its guiding value. In development, this will mean targeting our investments in neighborhoods where people need it most and being prepared to walk away from deals that don't. For safety, it will mean redefining how we keep our community safe. In all ways that word is understood. Law enforcement alone can't make us safer, and we have to turn away from the policies of the 1990s that led to mass incarceration and prioritized punishment over justice. We will need to find a way to work together for change that works for all of us. I'm energized by the push and pull of the political and policy development process because when you do it right, transparently, openly, and without compromising your principles, you get better outcomes. As I said earlier, if you want to know what each of us will do as mayor, ask us what we've done, our commitment, efforts, and results for Cleveland Heights. As a professional and as an elected official, I've pushed for progressive policies and programs my entire career. And I believe it has made a difference for residents of our city. As its mayor, I will put my expertise, my experience, and my passion to work, making the most out of this opportunity to create a more equitable, just, and sustainable Cleveland Heights. I would be honored to have the endorsement of the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus, and I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Next up is Obi.
My wife, Barbara Danforth, wants to make it crystal clear that this first term and this transition that Cleveland Heights is going through is going to be extremely difficult, extremely difficult. Not just the mayor changes, but the system changes, the culture has to change, and you need someone on day one who's going to know how to do that, who can hit the ground running and not learn on the spot. Barbara Danforth not only has the vision and the energy for taking Cleveland Heights into this transition, but she's done it. She's done it again and again. She has 30 years of executive leadership experience leading complex organizations and changing their cultures. Barbara Danforth is ready to be the mayor of everyone. She's going to listen to all voices, but she's going to make those tough decisions that are in the best interest of Cleveland Heights. If you want to see Cleveland Heights go into the next decade and the decades after that strong, you want to vote for Barbara Danforth.
Thank you. Next up is Melody. Go ahead, Melody.
Oh, okay. I want to thank everyone for attending. I harken back to my 30s when I tutored children from Cabrini Green, which is a horrible public housing facility in Chicago and where shootings were routine. That experience moved me to the left, and I realized that they had little hope of achieving their potential. And that made me feel that everyone had that right to achieve their potential. So I became a Democrat, and because of the values of the Democratic Party, they matched mine, and I became a Democrat. As a mayor, we have big changes coming. We have cultural changes, as was mentioned, which East Providence mentioned the same thing. And we have to have the policies and procedures and guardrails in place. But above and beyond that, setting in place the infrastructure, which I can do, I will also look at stabilizing housing, ensuring we have sufficient staffing to work on reducing and eliminating blighted properties so that our residents, neighborhoods, and property values are protected. I want to be sure developers follow our values and like maintaining our tree canopy. And I'll put in place procedures to accommodate things like that. I'll require looking at policies and procedures through a department, for all departments, through a lens, a racial lens, to make sure there's not disparate impact in any of our departments. The city has been at the forefront of sustainability, but I'll take that a step further, including looking into efficient vehicle purchases in other areas. CSU and the Racial Justice Task Force will be making recommendations on our policing. As that completes, I will implement those recommendations to ensure we have a well-trained, responsive police force. In Cleveland Heights, we have 20% of our population in poverty. One idea I have is to have an apprenticeship program that will
10
provide
seconds.
people job skills. And responsiveness, I will demand that all calls be responded to within 48 hours. I hope you will endorse me. Thank you for listening to me. A vote for me is
And Josie.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us. When the voters of Cleveland Heights amended our charter to elect a mayor, it was a mandate for change. That election was a clarion call for accountability and transparency. Our people want a government that is responsive to our needs, that trusts us to know what kind of place we want to live in. And we want a government that makes life better for all the people who live here, not just a select few. Cleveland Heights is facing many challenges, but we can't just band-aid grievances one by one. We need long-term strategies that address the roots of the issues. We need solutions that work to solve the underlying problems. But it's important to note that when we address the roots of problems, we are seeking systemic change. And let's face it, for some people, the system is working just fine. I am running for the people who struggle every day to stay afloat, for those who see the government as a cold, unresponsive bureaucracy that makes their lives harder, not better. And I am running for this place to make our city livable and enjoyable and breathable, not just for us, but for our children, our grandchildren, and for generations to come. I'm Josie Moore. I would be honored to earn the endorsement of CCPC, and please join us and support our campaign to build a forward-thinking, people-centered, sustainable, equitable Cleveland Heights. Thank you.
Thank you, Josie.
And thank you, all of the candidates. If we were in a live venue, I think we could all stand up and give a huge round of applause right now. But instead, let's either do this, or if you're Zoom proficient, go into the reactions and put the clap your hands logo up on the screen. That's the best we can do right now. Our endorsement process. And again, if you are a person that's not a member of CCPC and you want to vote on this, and maybe you came in late, we're going to send an email out tomorrow with all the links that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, and a link to join the Progressive Caucus. Membership is free. You'll start getting our emails. I think you'll like what you see in the emails, but if you vote on the endorsement and then you look at the emails and you don't like it, we have a clear unsubscribe button at the bottom, because we don't, want folks who don't want to get our emails getting our emails. We will, within a few days, I don't know how long it's going to take our tech people to get the applications and questionnaires and the video to this event. But we'll send out the email to our Cleveland Heights members for the endorsement vote. And included in the ballot will be a link to this forum for folks who may have missed it, and a link to the application and questionnaires that the candidates submitted. And we'll send out a couple of reminder emails. We like to give about a 10-day to 2-week period with a couple of reminder emails, because our goal is to get a very high percentage of our Cleveland Heights membership to vote on the endorsement. We do have a clause in our bylaws that says you have to have 50% of the vote for an endorsement. So there is a mathematical possibility, with 4 candidates that we could have a no endorsement. In any event, endorsement or not, we wish all of the candidates well, and we wish all of you well, and thank you very much for attending tonight. Take care.
Thank you.